The photos arrived in a manila envelope slipped under my apartment door. No note, no return address, just a stack of pictures that made my blood run cold. Me leaving my building for work, me at the grocery store, me meeting friends for coffee, me through my own apartment window. Curtains open, completely unaware I was being photographed. Someone had been watching me. For weeks, judging by the dates stamped on the backs of the photos. And they wanted me to know it. My hands shook as I flipped through them, trying to understand. I was nobody, a graphic designer working from home, living alone in a rent-controlled Brooklyn apartment. I had no enemies, no drama, no reason for anyone to surveil me like this, except one thing had changed recently. One new person in my life who came with complications I hadn't fully processed. I pulled out my phone and called him. Sienna. His voice was warm, pleased. I was just thinking about you. Dinner tonight? Someone's been watching me, taking photos. They left them under my door. I tried to keep my voice steady. Adrian, I need you to tell me the truth. Does this have something to do with you? Silence. Then, his voice changing completely, colder, controlled. Don't move. Don't leave your apartment. I'm sending people now. 20 minutes. Adrian, 20 minutes. Keep your door locked. Don't open it for anyone except Marco. He'll identify himself. He hung up before I could argue. I stood in my apartment, envelope of photos clutched in my hand, trying to process what was happening. Adrian Russo and I had been dating for 6 weeks. We'd met at an art gallery opening. He'd been standing in front of one of my pieces, studying it with genuine interest. We talked for hours about art, design, life. He'd been charming, intelligent, clearly wealthy, but not obnoxious about it. He'd also been vague about what he did for a living. Family business, he'd said. Import-export, property management, that kind of thing. I hadn't pushed for details, enjoying the romance without complications. Now those complications were literally photographed and documented. Exactly 20 minutes later, there was a knock. Marco Benedetti. Mr. Russo sent me. I looked through the peephole, a large man in an expensive suit, holding up an ID that looked official. I opened the door with the chain still on. The photos, he said calmly. Mr. Russo needs to see them. And we need to sweep your apartment for surveillance devices. Surveillance devices? What the hell is going on? Ma'am, I understand this is frightening, but Mr. Russo will explain everything. Right now, I need those photos and permission to check your apartment. I let him in because what choice did I have? Marco moved through my small apartment with professional efficiency, using devices I didn't recognize to scan for. What? Cameras? Bugs? Your apartment is clean. No devices. He held out his hand for the photos. These, please. I handed them over, watching him flip through with an expression that suggested he'd seen things like this before. How bad is this? That depends on who's watching you and why. Mr. Russo will assess the threat level. He pocketed the photos. Pack a bag. You're coming with me. I'm not going anywhere until I get answers. Mr. Russo will provide answers. But ma'am, if someone's surveilling you, they know where you live. They've been in this building. You're not safe here until we understand the situation. His voice was firm but not unkind. Please pack a bag. Enough for a few days. 20 minutes later, I was in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows, my overnight bag beside me, heading to an address Marco wouldn't specify. I tried calling Adrian, but he didn't answer. Tried texting, nothing. Where are we going? Mr. Russo's home. It's secure, private. You'll be safe there while he handles this situation. Handles it how? And why does he have someone like you, clearly security, if he's just an import-export? Marco glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Those are questions for Mr. Russo. The home was a brownstone in a neighborhood that screamed money, the kind of place I'd never afford in a lifetime of graphic design work. Marco escorted me inside, where an older woman greeted us with a kind smile. Miss Sienna? I'm Maria, Mr. Russo's housekeeper. Come, I'll show you to the guest room. You must be frightened. I'm confused more than frightened. I don't understand what's happening. Mr. Russo will explain. He should be here soon. She led me upstairs to a beautiful guest room. Please make yourself comfortable. Can I get you anything? Tea? Coffee? Answers. I'd like answers. Those I cannot provide. But I can offer tea while you wait. I accepted the tea and sat in the guest room, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The photos had been surveillance-level professional. Someone with resources and skill had been watching me. And now I was in Adrian's home. A home that clearly cost millions, with security and a housekeeper and all the markers of serious wealth. Import-export my ass. Nobody in legitimate import-export had this level of security, or could mobilize armed men to pick up a girlfriend within 20 minutes. An hour later, I heard voices downstairs. Adrian's voice speaking rapid Italian, then footsteps on the stairs, and he appeared in the doorway. He looked different than I'd seen him. Harder, more dangerous. He wore a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing muscular forearms covered in tattoos I'd never noticed before. His dark hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it, and his expression was grim. "Sienna, I'm sorry about this, about all of it." He crossed the room, reaching for me. I stepped back. "What's going on, Adrian? And don't tell me it's nothing. Those photos. Someone's been watching me for weeks. Your security guy swept my apartment for bugs. You have a housekeeper and a brownstone, and clearly way more money than import-export explains." I crossed my arms. "So before this goes any further, I need the truth. All of it." He was quiet for a long moment, studying me. Then he sighed and sat on the edge of the bed. "My name is Adrian Russo. My family runs operations throughout Brooklyn and parts of Manhattan. Import-export is technically accurate. We do have legitimate businesses. But the bulk of our income comes from less legitimate sources." He met my eyes. "I'm what you'd call a mob boss. Or I will be eventually. Right now, I'm second in command under my uncle." The room tilted slightly. "Mob boss. You're saying you're in the Mafia?" "Organized crime, yes. Not the romanticized movie version. The real thing. Protection rackets, gambling, some smuggling, various illegal operations mixed with legitimate businesses." His voice was matter-of-fact. "I was going to tell you eventually. I just wanted you to know me first before you knew what I was." "And those photos? Someone watching me? That's the complicated part. It could be business rivals trying to find leverage against me. It could be law enforcement building a case. It could be someone within my own organization questioning my judgment for dating a civilian." He pulled out his phone, showing me the photos Marco had brought. "But whoever it is, they're professional. These are surveillance-quality photos. This isn't some amateur stalker. So dating you made me a target." "Yes. I'm sorry. I should have considered that possibility. Should have been more careful. But Sienna, you are the first normal thing in my life. The first person who saw me as just Adrian, not Adrian Russo with all the baggage that name carries." He moved closer. "I didn't want to lose that. So I was selfish and kept you separate from my world. Now that world has found you anyway." I should have been terrified. Should have demanded he take me home, ended things immediately. Instead, I found myself asking, what happens now? Now I find out who's watching you and why. Make sure the threat is neutralized. In the meantime, you stay here where I can protect you." His dark eyes were intense. "I know this is a lot. I know you probably want to run far away from me and never look back. But Sienna, I need you to trust me enough to let me keep you safe while I handle this. And if I don't want to stay, if I want to go home, then I'll have Marco take you. But I'll also have security on you 24/7 because you're not safe alone until we understand the threat." His jaw clenched. "I brought this danger into your life. I'll take responsibility for keeping you safe from it." I looked at this man I'd been dating for 6 weeks, seeing him clearly for the first time. The danger that had always been there under the charm, the power that explained the deference people showed him, the complexity I'd sensed but not understood. "I'll stay. For now. While you figure this out." I sat in the chair across from him. "But Adrian, I need you to understand something. I'm not someone who can be kept in the dark. If I'm in danger because of you, I need to know everything. All of it. No more secrets, no more I'll tell you eventually. If we're going to navigate this, I need the truth." "Agreed. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Just ask the questions carefully. Some things you might not want the answers to. Try me." So he did. For the next hour, Adrian told me about his family, his organization, his role within it. He was honest, brutally so, about the violence, the illegality, the moral compromises required. He didn't romanticize it or make excuses, just laid out the reality of his life. "I've hurt people," he said at one point. I've done things that would horrify you if you knew specifics. I'm not a good man, Sienna. I'm someone who operates outside the law, who uses violence as a tool, who prioritizes power and profit over most moral considerations. But, I prompted, sensing there was more. But I have lines I don't cross. Women, children, they're off limits. Civilians who aren't involved in the life. I protect them. Don't target them. I try to minimize collateral damage, keep the violence contained to people who chose this world. He met my eyes. I'm not asking you to condone what I do, just to understand it. I'm trying to. It's just, I gestured helplessly. 6 weeks ago I thought you were a businessman with family money. Now I'm learning you're a criminal with a code of ethics. That's a big adjustment. I know. And if it's too much, if you want out, I understand. I'll make sure you're safe, give you security until the threat passes, then let you walk away. No guilt, no pressure. His expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the hope beneath it. But if you think you can handle this, if you want to try to make this work despite the complications, I'd like that. I'd like you to stay. I thought about it, about the Adrian I'd known for 6 weeks. Funny, intelligent, attentive, clearly infatuated with me. About this new Adrian, dangerous, powerful, operating in a world I didn't understand. About whether those two versions could coexist in someone I could love. I'll stay. For now. But Adrian, I need time to process this. To understand what being with you really means. And if at any point it becomes too much, you can leave. No questions asked. Your safety and well-being are more important than my feelings. He reached for my hand. Thank you for not running immediately, for giving me a chance to explain. Don't thank me yet. I might still run once this all sinks in. Fair enough. He stood. I should get back to work, finding out who's watching you and why. Maria will get you anything you need. Make yourself at home. And Sienna, I'm glad you're here, even if the circumstances are terrible. After he left, I sat alone trying to process everything. My boyfriend was a mob boss. I was staying in his brownstone under armed guard. Someone had been photographing me for weeks for unknown reasons. My life had gone from boring and predictable to dangerous and complicated in less than 12 hours. Maria knocked softly. Miss Sienna, I thought you might want dinner. You've had quite a day. That's an understatement. I followed her downstairs to a dining room where she'd set a place for me. Can I ask you something? How long have you worked for the Russos? 15 years. Since Adrian was 20. She served pasta that smelled incredible. I know what you must be thinking. How can I work for criminals? For people who hurt others? Something like that. Because they're not monsters. They're men operating in an impossible world, trying to maintain order in chaos. Mr. Adrian, he's a good man despite his profession. He protects people, keeps neighborhoods safe that police ignore, provides for families that the system abandoned. She sat across from me. I'm not saying it's right, just that it's more complicated than good and evil. Everyone keeps saying that. That it's complicated. I picked at my pasta, but someone's watching me. Someone thinks I'm a useful target because I'm dating Adrian. That's not complicated. That's dangerous. Yes, it is. Which is why Mr. Adrian will handle it. Make sure you're safe. That's what he does for people he cares about. Keeps them safe at any cost. She patted my hand. Give him a chance. Give this a chance. You might find it's not as frightening as you think. But it was frightening. And 3 days later, it got worse. I'd been at Adrian's brownstone for 3 days when he called me to his study. I'd been working remotely. My clients didn't care where I designed from as long as I met deadlines, and trying to pretend this was normal. Living in a mansion, eating meals prepared by a housekeeper, being escorted everywhere by armed security. Adrian looked exhausted when I entered his study. Papers covered his desk, multiple phones sat within reach, and he had that tension in his shoulders that suggested bad news. We identified who's been watching you. He gestured for me to sit. It's not good. Tell me. He pulled out a file, sliding it across to me. Inside were photos. Not of me this time, but of a man I didn't recognize. Dark hair, cold eyes, expensive suit. Victor Castellano. He runs a rival organization. Been trying to muscle in on our territory for the past year. Adrian's voice was hard. The surveillance on you is his way of sending a message. That he knows about you. That he could get to you if he wanted. that I'm vulnerable because I care about you. So this is a mob thing. Rival gangs playing games with people's lives. Yes. And Sienna, it gets worse. Castellano doesn't just surveil, he acts. 3 years ago, he kidnapped the girlfriend of one of my associates, held her for ransom. When we paid, he returned her alive but traumatized. Last year, he burned down a restaurant because the owner refused to switch loyalties. He's not someone who makes empty threats. My stomach dropped. So what does that mean for me? It means you can't go home, can't return to your normal life until Castellano is handled. If he knows where you live, knows your routine, you're not safe outside my protection. He came around the desk, kneeling in front of my chair. I'm sorry. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid by keeping you separate from my world. But it didn't work. He found you anyway. How? I never went to any of your business places. Never met anyone from your organization except Marco. How did he even know I existed? We got sloppy. Had dinner at a restaurant in neutral territory. Someone must have seen us, recognized me, took photos. Castellano's people are good at surveillance. They watch everyone in leadership positions looking for weaknesses. His expression was pained. You were my weakness, and now he knows it. So what happens now? I just stay here indefinitely? Give up my apartment, my life, my independence because some mob asshole wants to intimidate you? Only until we neutralize the threat. I'm working on it, putting pressure on Castellano, making his operations difficult, sending messages that touching you means war. Eventually he'll back down or I'll find leverage to force him to. He took my hands. I know this isn't fair. You didn't sign up for this. But Sienna, I need you to understand something. If Castellano takes you, if he hurts you to get to me, I won't be able to think rationally. I'll burn down his entire organization. Everyone connected to him. Consequences be damned. That's what you mean to me. We've been dating 6 weeks. That's not long enough to fall in love? Maybe for normal people. But I knew after 2 weeks that you were different. Important. Someone I wanted to keep. His dark eyes were intense. I love you, Sienna. I've been trying not to say it because I didn't want to scare you off. But with everything that's happening, with the danger you're in because of me, you deserve to know. You're not just some girlfriend I'm protecting out of obligation. You're the woman I love, and I will do anything to keep you safe. I stared at him, processing this declaration in the middle of a conversation about mob violence and kidnapping threats. Adrian, I don't know what to say. This is all happening so fast. You don't have to say anything. I'm not asking you to love me back or commit to this life. I'm just telling you the truth so you understand why I'm being so protective. Why I need you to stay here where I can guarantee your safety. Before I could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway looking grim. Boss, we have a problem. Castellano just grabbed one of our guys, Joey Marconi. Left a message saying it's a trade, Joey for the girl. Adrian was on his feet immediately, his entire demeanor changing. When? 20 minutes ago. They want an answer by midnight. Marco glanced at me. Boss, we can't. We're not trading her, ever. Tell Castellano that's not negotiable. If he wants a war, he can have one. But Sienna stays protected. His voice was ice cold, dangerous in a way I'd never heard. Get everyone together. We're moving on this tonight. After Marco left, Adrian turned back to me. I have to handle this. Maria will stay with you. Don't leave the house for any reason. Understand? You're going to war over me. Over someone you've known 6 weeks. I'm going to war because Castellano crossed a line. This was inevitable. The only question was what would trigger it. Apparently you're the trigger. He cupped my face. Stay safe. Stay here. I'll be back as soon as I can. Then he was gone, and I was left in his study surrounded by evidence of the dangerous world I'd stumbled into. Maria appeared, gently guiding me back to the guest room. Mr. Adrian will handle it. He always does. She brought me tea I didn't want. Try not to worry. He said he loves me. In the middle of talking about mob wars and kidnappings, he said he loves me. Of course he does. Anyone can see it. The way he looks at you, talks about you, the lengths he's going to for your safety, that's love. She smiled sadly. It's just love in a very complicated world. I couldn't sleep that night. Lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering where Adrian was, what he was doing, if he was safe. Around 2 a.m., I heard vehicles pulling up outside, voices in the hallway. Then Adrian's voice, speaking Italian, sounding exhausted. I crept to my door, opening it slightly. Adrian was in the hallway with Marco, both of them looking rough. Adrian's shirt had blood on it, his knuckles were bruised. Joey? Marco was asking. Safe. Got him out before Castellano could use him as a bargaining chip. Sent our own message back. Touch my people and I respond with violence. He understands now that this doesn't end peacefully. What about the girl? Castellano's still a threat to her. I know. Which is why she's not leaving this house until he's handled. I don't care if it takes weeks. She stays protected. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. Get someone to clean up this blood before she sees it. I don't want her more scared than she already is. Too late. I'd already seen it. Seen him covered in someone's blood, talking casually about violence, being exactly what he'd warned me he was. A dangerous man who used force to solve problems. I should have been horrified. Terrified. Ready to run. Instead, I found myself thinking about how he'd gone to war rather than trade me to an enemy. How he'd rescued his own man while sending a message. How he'd wanted to clean up before I saw the evidence of what he'd done. He was a criminal, but he was also someone who protected the people he cared about with absolute ferocity. I opened my door fully. Adrian. He turned, seeing me, his expression immediately shifting to concern. Sienna, you should be sleeping. I didn't mean to wake you. You're covered in blood? It's not mine, and it's being handled. Go back to bed. Whose blood is it? He hesitated, then decided on honesty. Castellano's men. 3 of them who were holding Joey. We had to convince them to let him go. Convince meaning hurt them. Yes. I won't lie about what I did tonight. There was violence. I participated in it. That's who I am, Sienna. That's what my world requires. He moved closer, stopping several feet away. If it's too much, if seeing this makes you want to leave, I understand. I'll arrange protection for you elsewhere. But I won't apologize for doing what was necessary to protect my people. I looked at him. This dangerous, complicated man who loved me enough to go to war, but respected me enough to give me an out if I couldn't handle his reality. I don't want to leave, I heard myself say. I want you to clean up that blood, get some rest, and tomorrow we figure out how to handle Castellano permanently so I can eventually have my life back. But I'm not leaving, Adrian. Not yet. His expression transformed, relief, hope, something deeper. You're sure? I'm terrified. But I'm sure? I moved to him, carefully avoiding the blood on his shirt. Just promise me something. Promise you'll be careful. That you won't do anything stupid to protect me that gets yourself hurt. I can't promise that. Protecting you takes priority over my safety. That's non-negotiable. He touched my face gently despite his bruised knuckles. But I'll try to be smart about it. Try to stay alive so I can come back to you. That's all I can ask for. He kissed me then, soft and careful, mindful of the blood and violence he carried. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I don't deserve you. Someone good and normal and kind. But I'm selfish enough to want to keep you anyway. I'm not that good. I'm choosing to stay with a criminal. That's morally questionable at best. That's pragmatic. I'm the best protection you have right now. Staying with me is smart. But his smile suggested he knew it was more than that. After he showered and changed, he came back to find me still awake. Can't sleep. Not really. Keep thinking about everything that's happening. The danger, the violence, how fast my normal life disappeared. I patted the bed beside me. Stay with me, just until I fall asleep. He did, pulling me close, his presence somehow calming despite everything I'd learned about him. I'll fix this. Find a way to neutralize Castellano that doesn't require perpetual protection for you. You'll get your life back. What if I don't want it back? What if I want this instead? You, this house, being part of your world. Then I'd be the happiest criminal in New York. But Sienna, you need to really think about that. This life, it's not safe. It's not normal. There will always be threats, always be violence on the periphery. Are you really ready to accept that? I don't know. But I want the chance to find out. Want to see if what we have is strong enough to survive the complications. I looked up at him. Is that crazy? Probably, but I'm not complaining. He kissed my forehead. Sleep? Tomorrow we start planning how to end this threat permanently. But ending the threat proved more complicated than anticipated. Castellano was entrenched, powerful, protected by his own organization. Adrian couldn't just eliminate him without triggering a war that would put everyone at risk, including me. We need leverage. Adrian explained 3 days later at a meeting I'd been allowed to attend. Another sign he was trying to include me in his world. Something that makes him back down without forcing open conflict. What about his own vulnerabilities? I asked. The men around the table looked surprised. Apparently girlfriends didn't usually participate in strategy sessions. Does he have family? Business interests that are vulnerable? Something he cares about more than territory. Marco pulled up files on a laptop. He's married, no kids. Wife stays out of the business. He's got legitimate investments, restaurants, real estate. And he's been trying to expand into art dealing, buying up galleries and auction houses for money laundering. Art dealing. My design background had included work with galleries, knew that world. That's regulated, traceable. If he's using it for money laundering, there would be evidence. Financial irregularities that could trigger investigations. Adrian looked at me with new interest. You know the art world. I designed promotional materials for galleries and auction houses for years before going fully freelance. I know how the finances work. What triggers red flags? An idea was forming. What if we fed information about his art dealings to the authorities? Not directly. That would point back to you. But through channels that make it look like someone in his own organization leaked it. You want to use the law against him. That's actually brilliant. Adrian was smiling now. It neutralizes him without direct violence, puts him on the defensive with authorities, makes him too busy with legal problems to focus on territorial disputes or personal vendettas. And it can't be traced back to us if we're careful about how the information surfaces. Marco was typing rapidly. Boss, this could work. We'd need to gather evidence, build a case, then leak it to the right people. But it's doable. Then we do it. Marco, coordinate with our people in the art world. Sienna, you consult on what evidence would be most damaging and how to make it look authentic. Adrian squeezed my hand under the table. You just potentially ended a mob war with your knowledge of art financing. That's impressive. I just want my life back. If using my skills helps accomplish that, I'm all in. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked closely with Adrian's team building a case against Castellano's art operations. It was surreal, using my legitimate skills to help take down a criminal by exposing his crimes. But it worked. The evidence was damning, the leak looked organic, and within days federal investigators were all over Castellano's galleries and auction houses. He's too busy fighting legal battles to focus on us, Adrian reported. And he knows the leak came from somewhere in his organization, so he's turning on his own people trying to find the source. You bought us peace, Sienna, possibly permanent peace if the federal case sticks. So I can go home, go back to my life. If you want to. The threat's neutralized, you're safe now. But his expression was carefully neutral, not wanting to influence my decision. What do you want? I looked around the brownstone that had been my home for almost a month. At Maria, who'd become a friend. At Marco, who'd taught me basic self-defense, just in case. At Adrian, who'd been honest about his darkness while protecting my light. I want to go back to my apartment long enough to pack. Then I want to move in here properly. Not as a protected witness, but as your girlfriend who's choosing this life. I took his hand. If you'll have me. His smile was brilliant. I'll have you. Gladly. But Sienna, are you sure? This is a permanent choice. Once you're really part of my world, there's no going back to normal? I stopped being normal the moment you sent Marco to pick me up. Now I'm just making the choice official. I kissed him. Besides, your world needs someone with art world connections. Might as well be me. Moving in with Adrian was easier than expected. My apartment lease was ending anyway, and most of my belongings fit into the guest room that officially became mine. Though I spent most nights in Adrian's room down the hall. This is weird. I told Maria one morning while helping with breakfast. Adrian had already left for business meetings. That I'd learned meant dealing with his organization's operations. I'm living with a mob boss. That's my actual life now. Mistra, Adrian prefers businessmen with diverse interests, Maria said with a smile. But yes, your life is quite different than a month ago. Are you happy? Surprisingly, yes. Terrified sometimes, confused often, but happy. I poured coffee. Is that strange? Being happy with someone dangerous. Love is rarely logical, dear. And Mr. Adrian is less dangerous to people he cares about than to anyone else. She patted my hand. You're good for him. He smiles more, worries less. He needed someone who sees past the reputation to the man underneath. That man came home early that afternoon, finding me working at the dining table. I'd spread out design mock-ups for a new client, my laptop surrounded by sketches. You're working from home now. Not gonna coffee shops or your old office? Easier this way. Plus the dining table has better lighting than my guest room. I gestured to my designs. New client. Boutique hotel in Manhattan. They want sophisticated but approachable. He studied my work with genuine interest. These are good. Really good. You have talent. Thank you. It's what I've been doing for years. Just never had anyone in my life who cared enough to look at my work. I saved my files. How was your day? Any mob boss emergencies? Nothing dramatic. Just meetings about territory agreements and profit distribution. The boring parts of organized crime. He sat beside me. Sienna, I need to ask you something. About your comfort level with my business. Okay? There's a dinner next week. Annual thing where all the families meet, discuss boundaries, negotiate agreements. Normally I'd go alone, but he took my hand. I'd like you to come with me. As my girlfriend, meet the other leadership, be introduced officially to my world. You want me to attend a mob dinner, like in the movies with all the families gathering. Less dramatic than the movies, more negotiation and posturing than violence. But yes, it would be your official introduction as someone important to me. Someone under my protection. He watched my face carefully. I understand if it's too much. But it's time people knew you exist, knew you're off limits. Better they meet you in a controlled setting than hear about you through rumors. Will there be dangerous people there? Everyone there will be dangerous. But the dinner itself is neutral ground. No violence, no threats, just careful politeness and business discussions. He squeezed my hand. You'll be completely safe. I promise. Then I'll go, though I have no idea what someone wears to a mob dinner. Something elegant. I'll have clothes delivered. This is formal, traditional. You'll need to look the part. He kissed my forehead. Thank you. For being willing to step into my world instead of asking me to hide you from it. The dress arrived 3 days later. A stunning emerald silk that fit perfectly, clearly expensive. Maria helped me with hair and makeup, explaining the etiquette. Don't ask about business directly. Don't stare at anyone too long. If someone speaks to you, be polite but brief. Most importantly, stay close to Mr. Adrian. Let him guide the interactions. This is so much pressure. You'll be fine. You're smart, observant, good with people. Just remember, you're there as Mr. Adrian's girlfriend, not as yourself. Everything you say and do reflects on him. The dinner was held at a private estate outside the city. Multiple black SUVs arrived in careful coordination, each carrying leadership from different organizations. Adrian helped me from our car, his hand on my lower back, proprietary and protective. Stay close. Don't engage unless someone addresses you directly. If you're uncomfortable at any point, tell me and we leave. His dark eyes were serious. This is important, but you're more important. Inside was surprisingly elegant. A formal dining room that could seat 50, expensive art on the walls, waitstaff serving drinks and appetizers. But the people made it clear this wasn't a normal society dinner. Every man radiated danger. Every woman had that careful polish of someone who'd learned to survive in a violent world. Russo, a man approached, older, distinguished, clearly powerful. I heard you brought someone. This must be the artist who helped with the Castellano situation. Sienna Hayes, this is Don Marcello. He runs operations in Queens. Adrian's introduction was smooth. Sienna, Don Marcello has been a family friend for 20 years. Miss Hayes, I've heard interesting things about your strategic thinking. Using art world regulations against Castellano was clever. Not many civilians would think in those terms. His assessment was sharp. You're an asset to young Russo here. I'm just a graphic designer who knows the art world. I kept my voice pleasant. The strategy came from Adrian. I just provided information. Humble too. Rare quality. He nodded to Adrian. You chose well. She'll serve you better than most. After he moved away, Adrian leaned close. You did perfectly. Acknowledged your role but deferred to me, showed respect without being subservient. That's exactly the balance needed here. The dinner itself was surreal. Courses served by silent waitstaff while dangerous men discussed territory boundaries like CEOs dividing market share. Their wives and girlfriends made polite conversation, clearly skilled at saying nothing while appearing engaged. I watched, learned, understood that this world had rules as strict as any corporate environment, just with more violent consequences for violations. Your girl is observant, a woman said to Adrian between courses. She was older, elegant, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I'm Sophia. I run the books for the Giordano family. My husband thinks he's in charge, but we both know who actually manages things. Nice to meet you. I liked her immediately. There was intelligence and humor beneath the careful polish. How long have you been doing the books? 20 years. Started as a secretary, ended up running financial operations because I was better at numbers than any of the men. She sipped her wine. You'll find there are more women in real power in this world than people think. We just let the men believe they're in charge while we handle the actual work. After she moved away, Adrian smiled. Sophia is one of the most powerful people in the room. She controls Giordano finances, which means she controls Giordano. Her husband is a figurehead. She's the actual boss. But she lets him think he's in charge. Smart women in this world know when to lead from behind. Direct power makes you a target. Indirect power makes you essential. He looked at me thoughtfully. You're learning fast. Watching how people interact, understanding the dynamics. That's valuable. The evening ended without incident. Agreements reached, boundaries confirmed, everyone departing in the same careful coordination they'd arrived with. In the car afterward, I finally let myself relax. That was exhausting. All that careful politeness hiding violence and power plays. Welcome to my world. Most of my days involve exactly that. Polite negotiations with dangerous people where one wrong word could trigger conflict. He pulled me close. But you did brilliantly. Several people commented on how poised you were, how you handled interactions perfectly. I was terrified the whole time. Couldn't tell. You looked confident, comfortable. Exactly what I needed you to look like. He kissed me softly. Thank you. For being willing to do that. I know it was outside your comfort zone. Everything about your world is outside my comfort zone. I'm just learning to adapt. I leaned into him. Though I have to say, meeting Sophia was interesting. She basically runs an organization while letting everyone think her husband is in charge. Sophia's brilliant. And she's right. There are more women with real power in this world than anyone acknowledges. They just hide it better than men do. He studied me. You could do that. Have real influence while maintaining the appearance of just being my girlfriend. You're smart enough, strategic enough. Are you offering me a job in organized crime? I'm observing that you have skills this world values. Strategic thinking, art world connections, the ability to read people. If you wanted to leverage those skills, there would be opportunities. His expression was carefully neutral. But no pressure? You can just be my girlfriend who lives here and designs graphics. That's enough. I thought about it over the next few weeks. Adrian had given me access to the safe parts of his world, the legitimate businesses, the financial operations, the networking with other families. I'd started consulting on art acquisitions for their money laundering operations, advising on which galleries and dealers were safe to work with. It was using my skills for illegal purposes. But it was also fascinating, challenging, engaging my brain in ways freelance design hadn't in years. I like this. I told Adrian one evening. We were reviewing potential art investments, legitimate purchases that would also help clean money. Using what I know in new ways. Feeling like I'm contributing instead of just being protected. You're good at it. Several of the families have asked if you'd consult for them too. You're becoming known as the woman who understands both the art world and our world. He pulled up a spreadsheet. Which means I need to ask you something serious. Do you want to be officially part of my organization? Not just my girlfriend who helps occasionally, but someone with a real role and real responsibility. What would that look like? You'd handle all art-related operations for us and our allied families. Acquisitions, authentication, sales, all the money movement through galleries and auction houses. It's legitimate work that serves illegal purposes. But it would be yours, your operation, your decisions, your reputation. He watched me carefully. It also means being deeper in my world. Knowing more, being more involved, accepting that you're not just adjacent to this life but part of it. Would I be in danger? More than I already am? About the same. Once people know you're important to me, you're a target regardless of your actual role. Might as well have that target mean something. Power, influence. Respect earned through your own skills rather than just association with me. I thought about the woman I'd been 2 months ago. Alone, underutilized, designing hotel brochures and restaurant menus. Then about who I could become. Someone with real purpose, using my expertise in ways that mattered, part of something larger than myself even if that something was illegal. I want to do it. Be officially part of your organization. Use my skills properly instead of just dabbling. I met his eyes. But Adrian, I need autonomy. If this is my operation, I make the decisions. I consult with you, but ultimately it's mine. Agreed. I don't want a puppet. I want you, the smart, strategic woman who ended a mob war with art world regulations. That woman makes her own decisions. He pulled me close. Welcome to the family business, Sienna. Try not to get arrested. That's encouraging. Over the next 6 months, I built my operation from scratch. Started small, authenticating pieces for Adrian's family, then branching out to consult for allied organizations. Built relationships with galleries and dealers who didn't ask too many questions about where money came from. Created a network of legitimate art world contacts who had no idea I was using them for money laundering. It was illegal. It was dangerous. It was the most fulfilling work I'd ever done. You're glowing, Maria observed one morning. Happy looks good on you. I found my calling. Just happens to be organized crime adjacent. I was reviewing authentication documents for a monet that was definitely stolen but had impeccable forged provenance. Is that terrible? Terrible would be being miserable in a legal job. You're thriving doing work you love. The legality is just details. She set down coffee. Besides, you're good at this. The families respect you. That's not easy to earn. She was right. I'd earned respect through competence and results. People came to me because I delivered. Good investments, clean money movement, legitimate cover for illegal operations. And I was making serious money. Adrian had insisted I'd be properly compensated, and art world consulting for multiple crime families paid extremely well. You're wealthier than when you were doing legal graphic design, Adrian pointed out when I expressed surprise at my bank balance. Crime pays if you're smart about it. And you're very smart about it. I'm a criminal now. Officially. That's surreal. You're a businesswoman operating in a gray area. Lots of people do the same thing legally. You just happen to know your clients are using your services for money laundering. He kissed me. Does it bother you, knowing you've crossed that line? It should. But honestly, no. I feel useful, valued, like what I do matters. That's worth more than abstract morality about whose money I'm helping move. Good? Because you're too valuable to lose now. Several families have said you're the best art consultant they've ever worked with. 2 years into our relationship, Adrian proposed. Not because of pressure or tradition, but because we'd built something real. A partnership that worked in both the legal and illegal worlds. Marry me? He said simply one evening. We were in the study reviewing acquisition options for a Rembrandt. Not because you have to, because I want you as my wife, my partner, my equal in this life we've built. That's very romantic for a proposal given while discussing a stolen painting. We're not romantic people. We're practical people who happen to love each other. He pulled out a ring, emerald, naturally, to match that first dinner dress. So practically speaking, will you marry me? Practically speaking, yes. I'll marry you. I let him slip on the ring, though I'm keeping my last name professionally. The families know me as Sienna Hayes. No reason to confuse them. Whatever you want. I just want you legally tied to me so everyone understands you're permanent, protected, mine. Possessive much. Absolutely. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm not taking chances on losing you. We married 6 months later in a small ceremony that was anything but normal. The guest list included 5 crime families, federal agents who worked with Adrian on occasion, and several art dealers who had no idea their favorite consultant was marrying a mob boss. This is the strangest wedding I've ever seen. My college friend whispered during the reception. She was one of 3 people from my whole life who'd been invited. Half these people look like they're in the Mafia. That's because they are, I said honestly. She laughed, thinking I was joking. Adrian found me after dinner, pulling me onto the dance floor. Happy? Deliriously. Though I'm pretty sure the art dealers are confused about why there are so many men in expensive suits watching the exits. Let them think I'm just paranoid about security. They don't need to know the truth. He held me close. You look beautiful. Even more beautiful than the day I met you in that gallery. You mean the day you stood in front of my piece pretending to understand contemporary art, while actually trying to figure out if I'd be useful for money laundering. I was genuinely interested in your art. The money laundering potential was just a bonus. He kissed me softly. Best gallery opening I ever attended, best stalker I ever had. I prefer persistent admirer. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy. Adrian showing me the country his family came from, introducing me to distant relatives who ran operations there. It was romantic and criminal all at once, perfectly capturing our relationship. This is where my grandfather started, he said in a small Sicilian town. Built his first organization, then brought it to America when he immigrated. Everything I have comes from what he built here. Do you ever wish you'd had a choice? To be something other than this? Sometimes. But then I remember that being this brought me you. And you're worth any amount of moral compromise. He pulled me close. Besides, I'm good at this. Being legitimate would bore me. That's a terrible reason to stay in organized crime. But an honest one? Back in New York, married life settled into comfortable routine. I ran my art operations, Adrian ran his organization, and we navigated the complications together. I'd become someone the families respected. Not just as Adrian's wife, but as someone with valuable expertise and good judgment. The Giordanos want you to authenticate a Caravaggio. Adrian told me one evening. They're willing to pay premium rates. But Sienna, this one's risky. The piece is definitely stolen from a museum in Rome. If anyone traces it to you, then I get arrested along with everyone else involved. I know the risks. I reviewed the documentation they'd sent. But the provenance is good. Forged, but good. If I can authenticate it without leaving paper trails, it's worth the risk. You're getting bolder. When we met, you were designing hotel brochures. Now you're casually discussing authenticating stolen masterpieces. You corrupted me. This is your fault. I kissed him. But I like who I've become. Someone who matters, who's good at complicated things, who's built something real even if it's illegal. Just promise me you'll be careful. I can protect you from rival families, from threats in my world. But federal charges for art theft. That's harder to defend against. I'll be careful. I always am. The Caravaggio authentication went smoothly. I confirmed it was genuine. The Giordanos sold it to a private collector in Dubai for millions, and everyone made money. Just another day in my illegal career. But 3 months later, everything changed. I'd been feeling off for weeks. Tired, nauseous, emotional in ways that weren't normal for me. I'd assumed stress, maybe the flu. Then I missed my period and reality hit hard. The pregnancy test confirmed it. I was pregnant with Adrian's child. I sat on our bathroom floor, test in hand, trying to process. A baby. We'd never discussed children, never planned for this possibility. And now I was pregnant in a world of violence and danger, bringing a child into organized crime whether we wanted to or not. Adrian found me there 20 minutes later. Sienna, Maria said you came home early, look pale, are you sick? I held up the test silently. His expression cycled through shock, then wonder, then fear. You're pregnant. Apparently. I know we never talked about kids, never planned for this. But Adrian, I'm terrified. How do we bring a baby into your world? Into violence and danger and all the complications. He sat beside me on the floor, pulling me close. The same way we've handled everything else. Carefully, strategically, together. We protect them. Give them the best life we can despite the circumstances. His hand moved to my still flat stomach. This is unexpected. But Sienna, I'm not unhappy about it. A child with you. That's something I didn't know I wanted until this moment. But your enemies will be dealt with. We'll increase security, be more careful, ensure no one can use our child against us. He kissed me softly. I'm scared too. Scared of being a father, of bringing someone innocent into my dark world. But I want this, want us to be a family. If you do, I do. I'm just trying to figure out how to be a mother in organized crime. That's not exactly a common parenting situation. We'll figure it out. Like we've figured out everything else. He helped me up. Come on, let's tell Maria. She'll be thrilled and immediately start planning a nursery. He was right. Maria cried happy tears and immediately started listing everything we'd need. The families we worked with sent congratulations and increased offers of protection. A child made Adrian more vulnerable, but also more respected. Family was sacred in this world. You need to be more careful now. Sophia told me at our next meeting. Pregnant women in our world are targets. Make sure Adrian's security is properly protecting you. He's already doubled it. I can barely leave the house without an escort. Good. Because Sienna, the moment that baby is born, you become the most valuable target anyone could have. Hurt your child, they destroy Adrian. You need to accept that level of protection even if it's suffocating. She was right. The pregnancy brought both joy and increased danger. Adrian became even more protective, insisting I work from home, limiting my travel, increasing security to absurd levels. I'm pregnant, not fragile. I protested when he suggested I stop doing in-person authentications. You're carrying my child. That makes you precious. Humor me. He pulled me close. I can't lose you. Either of you. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. 7 months into the pregnancy, the threat materialized. Someone tried to grab me coming out of a doctor's appointment. 2 men. Professional, clearly sent by someone who wanted leverage against Adrian. Marco and the security team stopped them within seconds, but the message was clear: I was vulnerable, and people knew it. This is my fault. Adrian said that night, pacing our bedroom. I brought you into this world. Got you pregnant, made you a target. I should have been more careful. Stop. This isn't your fault. It's the risk we both accepted by being together. I pulled him to sit beside me. Adrian, I knew what I was getting into. Maybe not initially, but I've had 2 years to learn your world. I chose to stay, chose to marry you, chose to have this baby. The danger comes with those choices. But you shouldn't have to live in fear. I don't. I live in caution, which is different. I trust your security, trust you'll keep us safe. That has to be enough or I'll go crazy with worry. The baby. A girl we named Isabella, arrived 3 weeks early. She was perfect, healthy, and immediately the most protected child in New York. Adrian hired a security team specifically for her, installed cameras throughout the house, and made it clear to every family in the city that his daughter was completely off limits. You're gonna make her paranoid? I said, watching him check the nursery monitors for the 3rd time that hour. I'm going to keep her safe. There's a difference. He pulled up the camera feeds on his phone. I know I'm being overprotective, but Sienna, she's everything. You and her, you're my entire world. If anything happened, nothing's going to happen. We have security, we're careful, and everyone knows touching us means war with you. That's significant deterrent. I took his phone away. Come hold your daughter instead of watching her on screens. Balancing motherhood with my art operations was challenging but manageable. I worked from home, did virtual authentications when possible, and brought Isabella to meetings when necessary. Surrounded by security and making it clear she was off limits to business discussions. She's adorable. Sophia said at one meeting, Isabella sleeping in her carrier beside me. And you're handling this well. Being a mother in our world isn't easy. Neither is being a mother anywhere. At least here I have resources, security, help, people who understand the complications. Just remember, she'll grow up in this world. She'll learn things normal children don't. You and Adrian need to decide early how much of his business she'll eventually know. That conversation happened when Isabella was 2. Adrian and I sat in his study, discussing her future. I want her to have choices I didn't, Adrian said. I was born into this, expected to take over operations. But Bella, she should be able to choose something legitimate if she wants. She'll still grow up knowing what you do. Knowing her father runs a criminal organization. We can't hide that from her forever. No, but we can give her options. Education, opportunities, ways out if she doesn't want this life. He looked at me. What about you? Do you want her involved in your operations? Learning the art world like you did? Only if she's interested, and only the legitimate parts until she's old enough to understand the rest and make informed choices. I thought about it. I don't want to force her into this world. But I also don't want to lie about it. She deserves honesty about her family. Then we'll be honest. Age, appropriately, but honest. She'll know what I do, what you do, what our world is. And then when she's old enough, she can decide if she wants to be part of it or walk away completely. You'd really let her walk away? If she wanted a normal life. I'd do anything to give her a normal life. Even if that means she grows up and wants nothing to do with the family business. His expression was pained. She deserves better than this world. Better than me. If she can have that, I'll support it completely. She has the best father. That's already better than many kids get. The rest we'll figure out together. Isabella grew into a bright, curious child who asked too many questions and saw too much despite our attempts to shelter her. By age 5, she'd figured out her father wasn't a normal businessman. Why do people look scared when they talk to Daddy? She asked me one day. Because Daddy's very important. He makes big decisions that affect a lot of people. Is he a good guy or a bad guy? That question made me pause. How did you explain moral complexity to a 5-year-old? He's your daddy who loves you. That's the most important thing. The rest is complicated adult stuff you'll understand when you're older. Okay. She accepted that easily, going back to her coloring. But I knew the questions would only get harder as she got older. At 10, she asked directly, Is Daddy in the Mafia? Adrian and I exchanged glances. We'd agreed to be honest when she asked directly. Yes, Adrian said simply. I run an organization that operates outside the law. It's not legal, but it's what I do. What my family has always done. Are you a bad person? That's for you to decide. I try to be a good father, a good husband, someone who protects people he cares about. But I've done things that aren't good. Things that hurt people. He knelt to her level. I won't lie to you about what I am, Bella. But I also want you to know that I love you more than anything. That will never change no matter what you learn about my work. She thought about it seriously. Do I have to do what you do when I grow up? No. You can be anything you want. Doctor, teacher, artist, anything. This world is your choice, not your obligation. Good. Because I think I want to be a veterinarian. Animals are better than people. She hugged him. But you're still my dad. Even if you're a criminal? Even if I'm a criminal, he agreed, holding her close. After she went to bed, he looked shaken. She knows, really knows, and she doesn't hate me. Because she loves you. Because you're a good father, despite your profession. That's what matters to her. I took his hand. We're doing this right, being honest, giving her choices, showing her there's more to life than the family business. She'll be okay? I hope so. Because I want better for her than what I had. Want her to have a real choice about her future. She will. We're making sure of it. Isabella chose normalcy. At 18, she went to college for veterinary medicine, moved into a dorm with regular students, and built a life completely separate from Adrian's world. She loved us, visited regularly, but made it clear she wanted no part of the family business. I'm proud of her, Adrian said, watching her drive away after a weekend visit. She saw what we are and chose something better. That takes courage. Are you disappointed? That she's not taking over your operations? Relieved. I never wanted this life for her. Wanted her to have choices I didn't. He pulled me close. She's happy, safe, building a legitimate career. That's worth more than having an heir to the business. What happens to your organization when you retire? I've been training Marco. He'll take over operations, keep things running. The family name will persist without requiring our daughter to sacrifice her future for it. He kissed my temple. I'm getting too old for this anyway. Maybe it's time to step back, focus on being a grandfather someday. Grandfather? You think Bella's gonna have kids? Eventually. And when she does, I want to be the normal grandfather who spoils them, not the criminal grandfather they have to hide from friends. His expression was thoughtful. I've been thinking about this more. About legacy? What do I want to leave behind? A criminal empire or a family that's happy and safe? You can have both. You've already built a family that's happy and safe despite the empire. Maybe. But I'm tired, Sienna. Tired of the violence, the constant vigilance, the moral compromises. I've been doing this for 25 years. Maybe it's time to let Marco handle operations while I transition to legitimate businesses only. I'd never heard him talk like this. Contemplating retirement, wanting normalcy. What would you do? If you step back from the organization? Focus on our legitimate holdings? The real estate, the restaurants, the legal import businesses. We have enough legitimate money that we don't need the criminal operations anymore. They're just habit and obligation at this point. He looked at me. What about you? Would you walk away from the art world operations? I've been thinking about that too. I'm 45 now. Isabella's grown. We're financially secure. Maybe it's time to just be a legitimate art consultant instead of one who moves money for crime families. We could do it together. Transition out. Become the boring legitimate couple who used to be exciting criminals. He smiled. Think you could handle boring? I think boring sounds perfect after 20 years of complicated. The transition took 3 years of careful planning. Adrian handed operations to Marco piece by piece, ensuring smooth succession. I referred my crime family clients to other consultants, slowly extracting myself from illegal operations. By the time we were done, we were just wealthy business owners with a questionable past. This is weird, I said one evening. We were having dinner at home, just the two of us, no business discussions, no security meetings. Being normal. Having a quiet evening without worrying about territories or rivals or federal investigations. Boring, like we planned. Adrian poured wine. Any regrets? Not one. Though I do miss the excitement sometimes. The challenge of moving money without leaving traces, authenticating stolen masterpieces, operating in moral gray areas. We can get our excitement elsewhere. Travel, hobbies, spoiling future grandchildren. He raised his glass. To boring normalcy after 20 years of organized crime. To normalcy. And to the weird path that got us here. Isabella married at 28. A veterinarian like herself, someone completely removed from our world. The wedding was traditional, boring, perfect. I watched Adrian walk our daughter down the aisle and saw emotions he rarely showed. Pride, joy, relief that she'd built a life so different from his own. She did it, he said at the reception. Built something completely separate from us. Clean, legitimate, normal. Because we gave her that option. Supported her choices even when they took her away from the family business. I squeezed his hand. We did parenting right, Adrian. Despite the complications. 2 years later, Isabella announced she was pregnant. Adrian's face when she told him, pure joy mixed with terror, made me laugh. You're gonna be a grandfather? That means you're old. I'm 55. That's not old. But he was already planning, talking about security for his grandchild, ways to keep them safe. Adrian, stop. Bella chose a normal life. That includes normal grandparent relationships. No security teams for a suburban baby. But what if my enemies? Your enemies are Marco's problem now. You're retired. Your granddaughter. Isabella had confirmed it was a girl. Will grow up completely normal. Never knowing her grandfather used to run a criminal organization. You think we can really do that? Keep our past from affecting her future. I think we've been doing it successfully with Isabella for years. We can do it again with her daughter. Emma, named after Adrian's mother, was born on a spring morning. She was perfect, healthy, and completely oblivious to her family's complicated history. Watching Adrian hold his granddaughter, tears in his eyes, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with 23 years ago. Not the mob boss, but the person underneath. Someone capable of profound love despite his dark past. She's beautiful, he breathed. Perfect. Everything her grandmother isn't and will never be. She'll grow up knowing her nano is just a successful businessman. That's good enough. Better than good enough. That's the greatest gift we could give her. Ignorance of what we really were? 5 years later, we were fully entrenched in normal grandparent life. Emma visited regularly, completely unaware that her nano used to run organized crime. She thought he was boring. Owned restaurants and buildings, talked about investments, told stories about the old neighborhood. Nano's stories are funny, Emma told me one day. She was 5, bright, curious like Isabella had been. He talks about people with weird names, like Marco and Sophia and all those people. Those are Nano's old friends, from before you were born. Did they do exciting things? Very exciting things. But that was a long time ago. Now we're just regular grandparents who spoil you too much. I like being spoiled. She hugged me. You're my favorite Nana. I'm your only Nana. That's why you're my favorite. Isabella pulled me aside during one visit. Thank you for giving her this. Normal grandparents, no complications, just love and stability. I was worried Dad wouldn't be able to separate his past from her present. He worked hard to leave that life behind. For you and now for Emma. She'll never have to know what he was. Unless she Googles him someday. The internet doesn't forget. Then we'll explain it honestly, like we did with you. But for now, she can just have a nano who makes her laugh and a nana who teaches her about art. At 60, Adrian was fully retired. We traveled, consulted on legitimate art acquisitions, lived quietly in the brownstone that had once been the center of criminal operations. Marco ran the organization Adrian had built, occasionally checking in but mostly operating independently. Do you miss it? I asked one evening. The power, the excitement, the danger. Sometimes. But then I look at what I have now. You, a daughter who's happy, a granddaughter who thinks I'm boring, and I realize this is better. Peace is better than power. He pulled me close. I spent 25 years fighting for control. Now I'm just enjoying what I have. That's enough. Think we'll get more grandchildren. Emma needs cousins. Isabella says they're trying. Maybe by next year. He smiled. More normal grandchildren who'll grow up thinking their nano was always legitimate. The ultimate con. Convincing our grandchildren we were never criminals. The best con I've ever run. And the most important. One evening, when Emma was staying over, now 8 and full of questions, she asked about the photos on our walls. Old pictures from when we were younger, including some from family gatherings that included people clearly not from normal life. Who are all these people, Nano? Old friends. From before you were born. Adrian pointed to various faces. That's Marco. He runs some of my old businesses now. That's Sophia. She was very smart about numbers. That's your Nana when she was young, before she met me? Why do they all look so serious? Like they're at a business meeting. Because we were always working back then. Didn't know how to relax and have fun like we do now. That sounds boring. I'm glad you know how to have fun now. She hugged him. You're much better as a fun Nano than a serious businessman Nano. After she went to bed, Adrian held me on the couch. She'll figure it out eventually. When she's older, starts asking real questions, maybe Googles my name and finds things. Then we'll explain honestly. That you were involved in organized crime, that I helped with illegal operations, that we walked away and built something legitimate. She'll understand or she won't. But Adrian, we can't hide forever. Our past exists. I know. I just want her to know us as we are now, not what we were. The grandparents who love her, who are boring and normal and safe. His voice was soft. Is that too much to ask? It's not. And for now, that's who we are to her. The rest can wait until she's old enough to understand complexity. At 70, Adrian had outlived most of his contemporaries from the criminal world. Marco had retired and handed operations to a new generation. The families we'd worked with had evolved, adapted, changed. Our names were legends from a different era, respected but no longer relevant. We're dinosaurs, Adrian said, reading an article about modern organized crime. Everything's different now. Cybercrime, identity theft, cryptocurrency. Nothing like how we operated. We're retired dinosaurs. That's allowed. I was working on a painting. Something I'd returned to in retirement, creating art instead of just authenticating it. Our world was different. But it was ours, and we survived it. That's enough. Do you regret any of it? The choices we made, the things we did. I regret that I can't be completely honest about my past. That I have to hide parts of who I was from Emma and any future grandchildren. But the actual choices? No. I fell in love with you knowing what you were. I chose this life fully informed. I can't regret that. Even knowing the danger, the illegality, the moral compromises. Even knowing all of that. Because Adrian, those choices gave me 25 years with you. A daughter, a granddaughter, a life full of purpose and meaning. I'd make the same choices again. Emma graduated college at 22, pursuing veterinary medicine like her mother. At her graduation party, she pulled us aside. I need to tell you something. I've been researching our family history. For a project, and I found things. About Nano's past. About both of you. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? Articles about organized crime in Brooklyn. The Russo family. Operations from the 80s and 90s. Your name is in some of them, Nano. And Nana, yours too. Art consultant to multiple crime families. She looked between us. Were you really part of the Mafia? Adrian and I exchanged glances. We'd known this conversation would come eventually. Yes, Adrian said simply. I ran organized crime operations for 25 years. Your Nana helped with art-related money laundering. We retired before you were born, transitioned to legitimate businesses. But that past exists. We can't erase it. Emma processed this, her expression cycling through shock, curiosity, and something like understanding. Mom knew. She grew up knowing. Yes. We were honest with her when she was old enough to understand. Gave her choices about her own involvement, which she wisely declined. He moved closer to Emma. I know this is a lot. Learning your grandparents were criminals. But Emma, we never brought that world near you. You grew up safely normally, completely separate from what we were. That was intentional. Why didn't you tell me before? Because you deserved a normal childhood. Deserved grandparents who were just boring and loved you, without the complication of criminal history. I took her hand. We were going to tell you eventually, just wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand the complexity. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, did you hurt people? Yes, Adrian said honestly. I did things I'm not proud of. Hurt people who probably deserved it but maybe didn't. Made choices that benefited me at others' expense. I was a criminal, Emma. A successful one, but a criminal nonetheless. And you, Nana? Did you help him do illegal things? Yes. I moved money through art markets, authenticated stolen pieces, consulted for crime families on how to hide illegal proceeds. I knew exactly what I was doing and chose to do it anyway. She processed this, studying us both. Then, surprisingly, she hugged Adrian. You're still my nano, and you're still the boring grandparents who spoil me and tell bad jokes. This doesn't change that, it's just information. Complicated information I need to think about. Take all the time you need. And Emma, if this changes how you see us, if you need distance, we understand. Adrian's voice was rough with emotion. We love you. That doesn't change. But we'd understand if your feelings for us change after learning this. They don't. They won't. She pulled me into the hug too. Your family. You always protected Mom. Kept her safe, gave her choices. You've been amazing grandparents to me. So you used to be criminals. That's just part of who you were. Not all of who you are. Emma's acceptance of our past made the remaining years easier. She'd ask questions occasionally, about specific incidents, about how we'd justified our choices, about the people we'd known. We answered honestly, never romanticizing but also not apologizing for who we'd been. I'm writing a paper on moral complexity, she told us one evening. She was in graduate school now, studying veterinary ethics, using your story as a case study, with your permission. How good people can make bad choices in complicated circumstances. We're your case study. Adrian looked amused. That's certainly one way to process having criminal grandparents. You're perfect for it. You were criminals who had ethics, who drew lines, who eventually walked away. That's more interesting than simple good or evil. She pulled out her notes. Can I interview you both? Get your perspectives on the choices you made. We spent hours answering her questions, about how Adrian had inherited his position, felt obligated to continue what his family built. About how I'd fallen in love despite the danger, found purpose in illegal work. About the lines we'd drawn. No hurting civilians, no involving children, no unnecessary violence. You created your own moral code within an immoral framework. Emma observed. That's fascinating from an ethics perspective. You weren't good people doing bad things or bad people pretending to be good. You were complex people making complicated choices in a system that didn't allow for simple morality. That's a very academic way of saying we were criminals with standards, I said. But it's accurate, isn't it? You operated outside the law but maintained internal ethics. That's worth examining. Her paper earned high marks. Her professor wanted to meet us, the former criminals who'd inspired an ethical analysis. We declined politely. Some parts of our past were better left as academic abstracts rather than personal interviews. At 75, Adrian's health started declining. Nothing dramatic, just the slow accumulation of age, arthritis, heart issues, the price of decades of stress and danger. He retired completely from even our legitimate businesses, spending his days reading, gardening, spoiling great-grandchildren when they visited. I'm getting old, he said one evening. We were sitting on the back patio, watching the sunset. Really old. Can't pretend otherwise anymore. You're distinguished. Silver Fox. Aging gracefully. I took his hand, still strong despite the arthritis, still bearing the scars of his past. We're both getting old. That's what happens when you survive past 70. Do you think we live good lives? Despite the choices we made, the things we did, I think we lived full lives. Complicated, morally ambiguous, sometimes dangerous. But full. We loved each other, raised a good daughter, protected our family, eventually walked away and built something legitimate. I squeezed his hand. That's more than many people accomplish. Legal or not. I love you. Have loved you since that day in the gallery when you looked at me like I was just a man, not a name or a reputation. You've been the best part of my life, Sienna. The thing I'm most proud of? Not your criminal empire, not the power you wielded. That was survival. You were choice. You were the decision I made for myself, not for family obligation or business necessity. Loving you, building a life with you. That was the only thing I did that was purely mine. Isabella and Emma came to visit more frequently as Adrian's health declined. Brought Emma's children. Now 3 of them, ranging from infant to 5 years old. They'd climb on their great-grandfather's lap, demanding stories, making him laugh in ways that seemed to revitalize him temporarily. Tell us about the old neighborhood. Great, Nano? The oldest would say. About your friends and the exciting things you did. The old neighborhood was loud and crowded and full of interesting people. Adrian would say, carefully editing his stories for young ears. We worked hard, took care of each other, built businesses that lasted. It was a different time. Were you famous? In my neighborhood, yes. People knew my name, respected my family. But famous like movie stars? No, we were just local businessmen who were good at what we did. After the children left, he'd be exhausted but happy. They'll never fully know what I was. What we were. And that's good. They can just know their great-grandparents as old people who tell stories and give them cookies. That's all they need to know. The rest is history that doesn't affect their futures. Marco visited occasionally, himself in his 70s now, long since retired from operations he'd handed to the next generation. They'd sit and reminisce about the old days, laughing at memories I wasn't always privy to. Remember the Castellano situation, Marco said during one visit. When Siena ended a mob war with art world regulations. That was brilliant. Changed how everyone thought about using legitimate systems against rivals. She was always smarter than any of us. Adrian agreed. Still is. Figured out how to navigate our world while maintaining her own ethics. That takes skill. And love. Takes love to accept someone's darkness while supporting their light. Marco looked at me. You were good for him, Siena. Made him better than he would have been alone. He was good for me too. Gave me purpose, challenge, a life beyond designing brochures. I smiled at Adrian. We were good for each other. That's all that matters. At 78, Adrian had a heart attack. Minor, manageable, but a wake-up call. We spent more time discussing end-of-life wishes, what we wanted for funerals, how to handle estates. I want it simple, he said. No mob funeral with hundreds of people paying respects. Just family. Isabella, Emma, the great-grandchildren. Marco if he's still around. Maria's children. She's family too. What about the organization? The families you worked with? They have their own leadership now. I'm just history to them. Old stories they tell new recruits about how things used to be. He squeezed my hand. I don't want my funeral to be about what I was. I want it to be about who I became. Your husband, Isabella's father, a grandfather who tried to give his family better than what he had. That's who you'll be remembered as. By the people who matter. What about you? What do you want when your time comes? Same thing. Small, family only. Maybe scatter my ashes in Florence, where I studied, fell in love with art, became who I was before I met you. Full circle, I thought about it. Though I hope that's many years away. We still have great-grandchildren to spoil. Always the optimist. Someone has to be. We made it to our 50th wedding anniversary, a milestone we'd never imagined during those chaotic early years. The family threw a party. Just immediate relatives, nothing elaborate. But it was perfect. 50 years with the same person. Emma said in her toast. That's remarkable in any context. But 50 years with someone who saw past your criminal reputation to the man underneath. That's love. Real, complicated, enduring love. 50 years of corrupting your grandmother. Adrian added to laughter. Turning a legitimate graphic designer into an art world money launderer. I'm very proud of that accomplishment. 50 years of reforming your grandfather. I countered. Turning a mob boss into a boring, legitimate businessman who spoils great-grandchildren. I'm proud of that too. Later, alone in our room, we looked at photos from throughout our relationship. That first gallery opening where we'd met. Our wedding with its mix of criminals and civilians. Isabella's graduation. Emma's birth, decades of moments, captured and preserved. We did good, Adrian said softly. Despite everything, the violence, the illegality, the complications, we built something real, something that lasted. That's rare. We did it by being honest. With each other, with Isabella, eventually with Emma. No pretending you were better than you were or that I was less involved than I was. Just truth and acceptance. And love. Lots of love. He kissed me gently. Thank you. For 50 years. For choosing this life, this complications. This man who didn't deserve you but got lucky anyway. You deserved me. We deserved each other. Two complicated people who found each other and made it work despite the odds. Adrian passed away 2 years later, in his sleep, peacefully. He'd lived to 80. Seen his great-grandchildren grow, spent his final years as boring and normal and loved. His funeral was exactly as he'd wanted. Small, family-focused, celebrating the man he'd become rather than what he'd been. Emma delivered the eulogy. My nunno was complicated. He was a criminal who became legitimate, a dangerous man who was gentle with his family, someone who made bad choices early but spent decades making better ones. He loved his wife, his daughter, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. That love defined him more than any business he ran or operation he commanded. He was my nonno. And I'm grateful for every story he told, every cookie he snuck me, Every moment I got to know him as just a grandfather rather than the legend he used to be. After the funeral, Isabella found me in the garden. "Are you okay, Mom?" "I'm sad. But also grateful. We had 52 years together, longer than we had any right to expect given his lifestyle." I looked at the flowers Adrian had planted. "He lived long enough to see you happy, Emma successful, great-grandchildren who'll never know the criminal he was. That's more than most people in his position get. What will you do now?" "Stay in the brownstone alone. For now. This house has 52 years of memories. I'm not ready to leave them yet." I squeezed her hand. "But I'll be fine. I have family, friends, projects to work on. Your father taught me to be strong. I'll honor that by continuing to live fully." I spent the next 3 years alone in the brownstone. Painted, consulted on legitimate art projects, spent time with family. Remembered Adrian in ways both complicated and loving, the dangerous man who'd sent security to pick me up. The devoted husband who'd made me laugh. The grandfather who'd told edited stories to children. At 83, I felt my own health declining. Nothing specific. Just the general sense that my time was running short. I put affairs in order, made sure Isabella knew where everything was, wrote letters to Emma and the great-grandchildren explaining my choices and hoping they'd understand. "You're being morbid," Isabella said when I explained what I'd done. "I'm being practical. Your father and I lived complicated lives. I want to make sure our story is told honestly after I'm gone, not romanticized or condemned, just understood as what it was. Two people who made questionable choices but loved each other deeply. The letters will do that. You've explained everything clearly. How you met, why you stayed, the choices you made, what you regret and what you don't." She hugged me. "They'll understand, Mom. They'll see you as the complicated, brilliant, loving person you were. Not just as criminals, but as people." I passed away 6 months later, peacefully like Adrian had. My funeral mirrored his, small, family-focused, celebrating a full life despite its moral complexity. Emma spoke again, her voice steady despite her tears. "Nana taught me that people aren't simple. That you can make bad choices and still be a good person. That love doesn't require moral perfection, just honesty and commitment." She fell in love with a criminal and chose that life fully informed. She helped with illegal operations while maintaining her own ethics. She raised my mother to be strong and independent. She was my Nana who taught me about art and courage and accepting people's complicated truths. I'm better for having known her. We all are. They buried me next to Adrian in a cemetery far from the old neighborhood, a place that represented our retirement years rather than our criminal past. The headstone was simple: Sienna and Adrian Russo. Beloved family. Complicated lives. Enduring love. Years later, Emma would publish her ethical study, expanded from her graduate paper into a full book about moral complexity in organized crime. She'd use our story, with family permission, as a central case study. The book would be successful, prompting discussions about how good people make bad choices, how love exists in dark places, how legacies are built from complicated truths. She'd dedicate it to Nana and Nano, who taught me that simple morality is a luxury complex people don't have. Thank you for your honesty, your love, and your example of surviving impossible situations while maintaining your humanity. Your story deserves to be told truthfully, not as heroes or villains, but as people who navigated an impossible world and found love in the darkness. And that would be our legacy, not as criminals who got away with it, or as romanticized mobsters, but as complicated people who made difficult choices in complex circumstances, who loved deeply despite moral ambiguity, who built a family that thrived despite the darkness of our past. We'd never been simple, but we'd been real, and in the end, that was enough.